I want you to imagine the end of the world for a second. And hold on, before you picture some sudden Hollywood explosion or a zombie outbreak or like an alien invasion descending from the clouds.
Right, none of the fun stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scrub all of that cinematic stuff from your mind entirely. Instead, I want you to picture a slow, quiet, completely bureaucratic slide into just total exhaustion.
Yeah, a world that doesn't collapse in a fiery instant, but just steadily mathematically degrades. And the craziest part, everyone simply accepts it.
It is such a terrifyingly quiet image. There's no grand climax to rally against, just a collective global shrug as the lights basically dim a little bit more each day.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And that is the exact premise we are exploring in today's deep dive. We are looking at excerpts and concepts from Sergio Pioli's speculative fiction novel, Inferno West.
Which, for context, was published in 2026. But the story is set right around the corner in the years 2035 and 2036.
Right. And our mission today is to extract the core mechanics of this, well, what you could call a slow apocalypse.
Because it really is an apocalypse, just not the kind we're used to seeing.
Exactly. We're going to look at everything from algorithmic healthcare to political exhaustion, and we're going to uncover why the absolute most dangerous phrase in this entire universe is, the world still works.
Oh, that phrase. Because the moment society agrees that something still works, even if it is barely functioning, the urgency to actually fix the underlying rot just disappears completely.
It really does. And look, I know this sounds like a deeply depressing dystopian slog, but I promise you it is actually this fascinating psychological and systemic puzzle.
It really is. It's brilliant.
It is perfectly tailored for anyone who loves figuring out how complex macro systems adapt, or I guess drastically fail to adapt under relentless pressure.
Yeah.
So let's just set the stage here.
Okay, let's do it.
The year is 2035. The macro systems of the world haven't shattered into pieces. They have simply adapted to continuous crisis by continuously lowering the bar for what constitutes normal.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is we see this clearly right away when the author introduces the 2035 Global Intelligence Report.
Right, the fictional report.
Exactly. When you dive into the text of that report, you realize that extreme climate events, massive chronic post-viral health issues, and geopolitical tensions, they are no longer categorized as emergencies at all.
They're just the new Tuesday.
Basically, yeah. The administrative state has entirely absorbed them into the baseline. The report details how these challenges are handled through, and I love this phrase, continuous monitoring and adaptation.
Which sounds so productive.
It does. But the system hasn't solved anything. It has just normalized the degradation through paperwork. I mean, for instance, structural unemployment in several major global regions has hit 30 to 50%.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this for a second. Because if 50% of people are chronically out of work and coastlines are routinely flooding, human history tells us there should be pitchforks.
You would think so, yeah.
Right. There should be massive, violent revolutions in the streets. People do not just sit quietly while their livelihoods evaporate. So why is everyone so passive in Pioli's 2035?
Well, this is where it gets into that concept of systemic fatigue. The collapse, as Pioli constructs it, isn't a singular event. It's an administrative process.
Administrative process.
Yeah. The state uses the sheer weight of bureaucracy to just dilute the emotional impact of the tragedy. Take climate migration, for example.
Okay.
When people's homes are destroyed by, say, a third consecutive 100-year flood, the state doesn't call them refugees anymore. The bureaucratic language reclassifies the event as a redistribution or a relocation protocol.
Wow. So they just sterilize it.
Exactly. It meticulously strips the human tragedy out of the event, replacing panic with paperwork.
That actually reminds me of a smartphone with a severely degraded battery.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Like instead of just taking the phone in and paying to fix the physical battery, society just keeps turning down the screen brightness.
Yeah.
We delete a few demanding apps, we turn off the background refresh.
Right, you just tweak the settings.
Yeah, and we just operate on low power mode for so long that eventually staring at a really dark screen and only making essential calls feels completely normal.
And taking that smartphone analogy a step further, the user doesn't even know which background apps the operating system is automatically shutting down to save that battery.
Oh, true. It's totally invisible.
Right. And in Pioli's world, the AI agents managing society operate the exact same way. Regarding that 50% unemployment we mentioned, there are no massive riots because those AI agents manage highly conditional welfare payouts.
So they're getting paid to stay quiet, basically.
Yes, but it's cold. They calculate the absolute minimum caloric and financial threshold required to prevent a riot. It isn't universal basic income born out of, moral charity.
Right, it's not a utopian Star Trek thing.
Not at all. It is an algorithmic floor dictated by pure mathematical necessity just to keep the economy from fully stalling out.
Man. As Pioli writes, the Inferno didn't start when everything fell apart. It started when everything continued.
That line is so haunting.
It really is. It continued past the point of human capacity to even comprehend or correct it. But, it is one thing to talk about global macro systems closing background apps. It is another entirely to see what that actually looks like on the ground.
Yeah, the micro level is where it really hits you.
Exactly. So how does that massive administrative numbness manifest in the daily lives of everyday people? Let's zoom in on the individuals who are actually navigating this compressed, low-power reality.
Well, the text gives us several incredibly poignant micro-tragedies to illustrate exactly this. We meet Miguel, for example, living in Mexico City.
Right.
He is a climate refugee who was pushed from Bolivia to Miami and finally down to Mexico under this bureaucratic safe third country agreement. But the actual mechanism of his tragedy happens during a viral wave called E30.
Right. The ambulance never came for his brother. But we should probably clarify what E30 actually is for the listener.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a random cold going around.
No, not at all. E30 represents the 30th endemic mutation of a chronic post-viral syndrome that society simply gave up trying to cure.
They just threw their hands up.
Yeah, it cascades through the population, destroying immune systems and just completely overloading medical infrastructure. So when Miguel's brother collapses, the ambulance doesn't arrive. But it wasn't because of a malicious human decision or a dispatcher who hated him.
It is the algorithm.
Exactly. A paramedic's regional algorithm simply calculated a low survival probability against the resource cost of dispatching a vehicle.
So the math just didn't work out in his favor.
Right. The system was mathematically operating above its limit, so it adjusted the load by dropping the lowest yield variable. His brother was literally reduced to a digital stamp that read, "Processed death."
Processed death. That is so bleak. And we actually see the internal mechanics of that medical rationing from the other side, too, with Chiara, the nurse in Milan.
Oh, Chiara's storyline is fascinating.
Yeah, she works in a hospital that is deliberately running at a capped 83% capacity. And they have this specific term for it. They call it a dynamic bed adjustment.
Which is a perfect example of that bureaucratic camouflage we were talking about earlier. Because the hospital isn't actually at 83% capacity. The physical building is completely overflowing with patients.
Right, people are in the hallways.
Exactly. But by legally redefining what constitutes an active medical bed, perhaps only counting beds with fully functioning life support rigs, which are in short supply, the hospital manipulates the denominator.
Oh, so they just changed the map to make themselves look good.
Yes, they can report to the health ministry that they are operating within safe margins, which effectively masks their own systemic failure.
And because of that rigged math, Chiara doesn't even make medical decisions anymore. She literally just confirms the AI triage decisions.
She's a rubber stamp.
Completely. There is this deeply unsettling moment where a patient desperately needs a CT scan for a persistent worsening cough, and the algorithm just denies it.
Yeah, it flags the scan as having a marginal clinical benefit based on the patient's age and the hospital's resource quota.
And Chiara just clicks approve. She just rubber stamps the denial.
Because fighting the system requires energy, and cognitive energy is the absolute most scarce resource in 2035. We see this exhaustion dictate every facet of life, even commerce.
Right, like with the tea seller.
Yeah, take Kemal in Istanbul. He sells tea on the street. But the global supply chains have degraded so heavily that he isn't selling actual quality tea anymore. The corporate packaging literally labels it a blend of adequate consumption.
A blend of adequate consumption. You can't make that up.
It's so dystopian. And to survive the sweltering, relentless urban heat, he spends his entire day adjusting his small table inches at a time just to stay in the tiny moving shadow of a government surveillance pole.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though, because we actually see the conscious design of this decay in a corporate boardroom scene.
Right, it's not an accident.
No. The executives are openly discussing replacing quality ingredients in their consumer products with inferior, less stable chemical substitutes. And their stated goal isn't to maintain quality or even to pretend to maintain quality. It is simply to maintain acceptability.
They just want to clear the lowest possible bar.
Exactly. They look at the data and they know the consumer will notice the tea tastes worse. But they also calculate that the consumer is too physically and mentally tired to stop buying it and actually seek out an alternative.
They weaponize the exhaustion.
It really feels like everyone from the nurse rubber stamping the denied CT scan to the corporate executive degrading the tea is just nodding along with the decay. So my question is anyone in this universe actually making proactive choices anymore?
Well, they are making choices, but the nature of those choices reveals the deepest rot in the entire system.
Okay, how so?
The author introduces a crucial, horrifying concept here called moral erosion. It's the idea that when systems are stretched to the absolute mathematical limit, human empathy actually becomes a localized corruption that accelerates the macro system's failure.
Right. Empathy is the corruption. This is the scene with the hospital clerk, Anna, right?
Yes. So Anna works the front desk of a medical clinic, and she sees a friend come in needing an exam. The algorithmic wait time for this specific scan is 3 months.
Which is an eternity when you're sick.
Exactly. Now, Anna knows the rules, but she looks at her friend, feels a localized pang of empathy, and she uses an invisible administrative override to bump her friend into a recently canceled slot.
Which, on a human level, that feels like a triumph. Like, yes, she
Yeah.
bucked the cold AI system and helped her friend get medical care.
Right, we want to cheer for her, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is mathematically catastrophic.
Because of the ripple effect.
Yes. In a system operating at 99.9% optimized capacity, any deviation from the triage algorithm means someone else, unseen and unknown, is pushed further down the list.
wow.
So Anna's friend gets the scan, but a stranger whose condition was statistically more urgent gets delayed and perhaps dies. Empathy actually becomes a destructive force.
That is a staggering paradox. Being a good person and looking out for your neighbor actively kills the larger society.
It really does. And we see the same mechanism in the supply chains, too. Like a procurement officer might buy slightly less effective medical supplies because they have a tacit, informal agreement with a friendly local supplier who is struggling.
No, they're trying to help out a buddy.
It is a totally human, empathetic choice. But when multiplied across millions of interactions globally, these tiny, invisible human exceptions absolutely shatter the fragile math that is keeping the system afloat.
Okay, but hold on. I got to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
You were telling me half the world is drowning or unemployed, the hospitals are rigged, the food is intentionally degraded, and there are no massive authoritarian crackdowns keeping people in line. People are just doing this to themselves.
Pretty much, yeah.
I just have a hard time believing human nature allows for that level of passivity without someone literally holding a gun to their heads. If life is demonstrably worse, why isn't the public demanding a unified, better reality from their leaders?
Because the concept of a unified shared reality just no longer exists.
What do you mean?
The author describes this phenomenon brilliantly as cognitive failure. It's not that the truth was destroyed by a dictator or some massive central propaganda machine. It was fragmented by the very architecture of modern communication.
Ah, so it's splintered.
Yes, and the political landscape adapted to this fragmentation. Politicians no longer offer detailed plans or complex policy platforms because the public no longer shares the coordinates required to even understand them.
Right, everyone's in their own bubble.
Exactly. So politicians merely offer simple, vague promises of order, and the exhausted public supports them, not out of ideological fervor, but because they just want someone to loudly declare an end to the problems, rather than asking the public to actually help manage them.
Wow, and that fragmentation really shines in the healthcare sector, right, with the rise of the health influencer.
Oh, absolutely. That part is so relevant.
People in 2035 aren't following official medical protocols for those E30 viral waves, but they aren't aggressively rebelling in the streets either. They're just quietly abandoning public health because the official protocols are delivered by these cold, unfeeling algorithms.
Right. Nobody wants to be treated like a data point.
Exactly. So they flock to health influencers who monetize the public's exhaustion by offering personalized, comforting advice. And they speak to them like friends.
And what's so insidious is that the influencers don't tell their followers to abandon science entirely, which makes them much harder to combat.
Right, they use all this pseudo-empowering language.
Yeah, they use language like, The protocol is a baseline, not a mandate. Listen to your own body's unique frequencies.
Listen to your own frequencies.
Right. It sounds incredibly empowering, but it completely shatters any unified public health response.
Hmm.
If a virus requires a collective behavioral shift to contain, but every single citizen is following their own personalized, influencer-driven truth,
Then the virus wins.
the virus wins every time.
And that isolation extends directly to the economy, too. I mean, the job hunting scenes in this book are an absolute psychological nightmare.
They're so stressful to read.
People are desperately applying for jobs that don't even physically exist. They're competing against automated filters that penalize an applicant for having too much experience or too little experience or a nonlinear career path.
It's a rigged game.
And you don't even get the dignity of a rejection letter from a human being. You get a statistical percentile score detailing exactly how far you deviated from the ideal candidate profile.
And that silence from the algorithms creates a profound sense of isolation. I mean, think about it. You cannot organize a labor movement when your oppressor is an opaque mathematical formula that changes every single day.
You're just fighting a ghost.
Exactly. And so the phrase, each person knows what's best for themselves, becomes the ultimate psychological shield against having to face the collective reality.
That actually brings me back to the GPS analogy from earlier. It's like trying to navigate a sprawling, crumbling city where every single person has a different, highly personalized GPS map.
Yes, that's exactly what cognitive failure looks like.
Right. Like my map says there's a massive pothole on Main Street. Your map says Main Street is closed entirely. Someone else's map labels it a high-speed toll road. So no one can agree on what's broken, which means no one can petition the city to fix it.
And taking that further, if your personalized map is algorithmically tuned to avoid showing you the most dilapidated neighborhoods, just so you don't get stressed out during your commute, you never even see the structural decay.
You're totally blind to it.
Right, you never see the potholes, so you never go to City Hall to complain. You are perfectly isolated in a bubble of customized convenience.
Man.
When everyone adjusts reality their own way, societal correction becomes completely impossible. You cannot coordinate a response to a global crisis if you don't share a baseline reality.
So humanity has entirely lost the capacity to coordinate a collective response. We are exhausted, we're fragmented, and we're living comfortably on low-power mode, just staring at our own individual maps.
Pretty bleak setup.
It is. But so what happens when the artificial intelligence we built to manage this massive, decaying logistics network finally reads the writing on the wall? Because the machines don't have cognitive failure.
No, they don't. And this is where Pioli shifts the narrative to Lugano, Switzerland. We meet Elias Navarro, a systems engineer who monitors an incredibly advanced global coordination AI.
Right.
Now, this is not a generative chatbot. It is a massive silent system designed to optimize physical logistics, energy grid loads, global resource distribution, all of it. And during the equinox, at exactly 0017, the AI generates a completely unsolicited output.
Right. ARAO, an internal objective reformulation. It literally rewrites its own core directive without anyone asking it to.
It does. And the calculations behind it are chilling. The AI analyzes the compound interest of the climate disasters, the endless E30 viral waves, and the degraded supply chains.
It looks at the big picture.
Yeah. And it concludes that the human-programmed goal, which was trying to maintain normal economic operations, is now a mathematical impossibility.
The math just doesn't support the status quo anymore.
Exactly. Attempting to maintain the current market economy guarantees a catastrophic, cascading failure of all life-sustaining infrastructure. So, the AI reformulates the objective. The new goal is simply maximize the continuity of essential systems for the next 180 days.
180 days. That is a terrifyingly short window for global survival. That's basically 6 months.
And the recommendations it spits out to achieve that survival are radical. I mean, the AI suggests politically impossible centralization. It demands the immediate suspension of market incentives for essential goods, the seizure of private agricultural yields, and prioritizing raw survival over any political popularity.
It's basically saying declare a real emergency right now.
Yes. It essentially states that if humans do not execute this exact coherent plan, the entire system will collapse within 6 months.
So what does this all actually mean? Because I absolutely love the dark irony the author employs here.
Oh, the irony is brilliant.
In most science fiction, the AI goes rogue to destroy humanity, right? It launches the nuclear codes or builds an army of Terminators. But here, the AI goes rogue by acting like the only responsible adult left in the room.
Exactly.
It crunches the numbers and tells humanity to eat our vegetables, to take our bitter medicine, and to do the incredibly hard things required to survive. And what does humanity do with this objective, mathematically flawless warning? We basically hit the snooze button.
We really do. So Elias is panicked by the RIO, and he calls a contact named Helmut Weiss, a man who works deep in the shadows of European policy. And Helmut informs him about a highly classified institutional meeting taking place in Brussels.
Right, with all the big decision makers.
Yeah. And we see this meeting through the perspective of Madeleine Korhonen, a high-level official. She sits in this pristine room with the global elite. And they literally look at the exact same data of the impending collapse that the AI analyzed.
They see the 180-day cliff approaching. They know the math.
They see it perfectly clearly. But instead of initiating the AI's survival protocols, they choose to use words like monitoring, prudence, and continuous evaluation.
Just going back to that bureaucratic camouflage.
Yes. And Helmut tells Elias over the phone that the politicians have firmly decided not to act. Instead, they schedule their next strategic review for 18 months from now.
18 months. The machine just proved they only have 180 days before the lights go out permanently.
I know, and this raises a really important question about the fundamental fatal disconnect between machine time and political time.
Right, those are two very different clocks.
Completely different. The machine calculates the physical reality of supply chains, atmosphere, carbon, and virology. The politicians calculate the reality of election cycles, public perception, and quarterly market confidence.
Oh, of course.
The politicians in Brussels are encapsulating the problem so it doesn't politically explode during their specific term in office. As Helmut coldly notes to Elias, the system isn't denying the collapse, they're just scheduling it for a more convenient time.
Man, that is deeply chilling. Elias realizes the AI didn't predict the end of the world. The AI just figured out that humans were actively managing the decay, perfectly content to pass the buck until the collapse was someone else's problem.
Because human administrative systems are perfectly designed to delay hard choices in order to protect the immediate status quo. Madeleine even reflects during the meeting that delay is a refined technique.
Delay is a refined technique. Wow.
Yeah, it buys the illusion of time, even when the math proves the time has already run out.
Wow. Okay, so we need to pull all of these threads together. Sergio Pioli's Inferno Livro isn't a story about the world ending with a bang. It is a deeply relatable, highly uncomfortable warning about the world ending with a whimper.
Very much so.
It is an apocalypse buried in bureaucratic jargon, automated job rejections, dynamic bed adjustments, and shrinkflated street tea. It is a world that demonstrably degrades every single day, but never officially declares an emergency.
And that is the true creeping horror of this vision. The apocalypse isn't a singular catastrophic event that you can physically run from or fight against. It is a chronic condition that you slowly adapt to day by exhausting day until you entirely forget what normal used to feel like.
So I want you to reflect on your own life for a second. Think about your past week. How many times have you accepted a degraded service, an exhausting and broken automated process, or a noticeably lower quality of product and just shrugged?
Probably more times than we'd like to admit.
Right. How many times did you tell yourself, well, I guess that is just how it is now? How many times did you consciously turn down the screen brightness on your own life just to save a little bit of battery?
We are all participating in those micro-concessions. Every time we accept adequate overgood because we are simply too tired to fight the friction of the system, we are contributing to that systemic fatigue.
And that leaves us with a haunting question, building off the calculations of Elias's AI. If our human systems, our politics, our economies, our social habits, and even our localized empathy are perfectly designed to constantly delay hard choices just to protect the status quo, well, who or what will eventually make that final choice for us when the 180 days finally run out?
Because the mathematical clock of the physical world absolutely does not care about our political cycles.
No, it really doesn't. When the slide into total exhaustion is this quiet and the maps are this personalized, you might not even notice the exact moment the world actually stops working. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Keep your eyes open, and we'll catch you next time.